In one of the jokes Ronald Reagan used to tell about Soviet Russia and the communist economy, he told of a man who showed up to the government offices inquiring about the car that he ordered and was entitled to, asking when it might arrive. He was told to come pick up the car in exactly 10 years from that day. The man inquired and said, well, in 10 years from today, is it going to be in the morning or in the afternoon that I should come pick up the car? And the response was, what do you care? It's in 10 years from now. What are you even talking about? He said, well, that's because the plumber said he will come on that exact same date in 10 years. As Jews, we're used to asking questions, but sometimes the answers take very long. Parshat Vaera is an answer to a question that was asked at the end of last week's Parsha. At the end of Parshat Bo, Moshe turns to God and he says words that echoed through the minds of many Jews through the centuries. Lama hare'ota la'am hazeh. Why have you worsened the condition of these people? Why is it that since I've come to speak to Pharaoh, the working conditions of the Jews actually became worse, not better? Why have things become worse for the Jewish people? V'lama zeh shlachtani. And in the beginning of this week's Parsha, a week later, God answers Moshe. He says, Vaera, I have spoken to your forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Bekel, Shakai, Ushmi Hashem lo nodati lahem. I have spoken to your forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They didn't answer, they didn't ask for immediate questions the way you do. They dealt with difficulties, but they didn't demand to understand why immediately. Atatir now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. God goes on to share the very famous 4 leshonot of Geula, vehotzeti, vehitzalti, vega'alti, velakachti, the ones that we reflect in drinking the 4 cups on the Seder night. And there's no real answer to the question of vehotzeti, vehitzalti, vega'alti, velakachti, meaning there's no real answer to the question of Lama hareota lamazeh in those 4 leshonot shel Geula. God doesn't tell Moses why he made things worse for the Jewish people. And I'd like to answer this based on an idea I heard from Rabbi Aaron Levi in Israel and a story that I saw about Eli Wiesel. Eli Wiesel was a world-famous scholar and really someone who made the commitment to never forget the Holocaust a global commitment. And after being a world-famous author and after memorializing the Holocaust in his books, in his lectures, in his writings, finally Eli Wiesel got to go back to his childhood town. He got to go back to the town of Siget, and he remembered when he was in the hotel that the night before they were deported to Auschwitz, he was able to hide the beautiful watch he received for his bar mitzvah. He remembered that the night before his bar mitzvah, the night before the deportation, he took his special golden watch. He walked into the backyard. He took X amount of steps to the right, certain amount of steps to the left, dug a pit, and he buried his watch. Now, once his watch was buried in the ground, he covered it. He was deported to Auschwitz. And now here he was 10, 20 years later, back in Siget, in a hotel, and he could finally go and dig out his watch. Ellie Wiesel, the world-famous scholar, snuck out like a thief out of his hotel in the dark of night. He's a well-dressed man now, and he goes to the backyard in the dark of the house that used to be his house. And he follows the exact same steps that he memorized when he hid the watch. He takes a certain amount of steps to the right. He takes a certain amount of steps to the left. And he finally arrives at the spot where he was where he hid the watch, not knowing if it's still there. In the dark of the night, he digs in this ground in his backyard, and rusty but still in good shape, he finds the watch that he hid, the watch of his childhood. Now's his chance to take it out, to connect to all those childhood memories, and to bring it to the United States, maybe to be able to give it to one of his own kids. Ellie Wiesel froze. He took the watch, he put it in the ground, and he dug it, and he covered the pit again. He was not able to bring it with him. He had to leave it behind. The same Eli Wiesel who was able to vividly describe the horrors of the Holocaust, of the Death March, He was the same Ellie Wiesel who was not able to take his watch from his childhood. Certain things must be left behind. Certain times we just have to focus on what's happening going forward. God tells Moshe, listen, I know you want to know the answer to Lama Harehot Alamazeh. I know you want to know the answer to what has happened to the Jewish people. Why have I made my lives more difficult since you have come? Why did the workload become bigger since you have spoken to Paro? But my answer to you is, Vehotzeti vehitzalti vega'alti velakachti. I will redeem Bnei Israel. I will take them out of Egypt. Sometimes in life we ask God, Lama hareyot alamazeh? Why, God? Why have you done this to me? Why have you done this to us? Why have you done this to them? And sometimes there are answers and sometimes there are not. But the most powerful answer possible is the answer of burying that watch in the backyard and looking forward to vehotzeti vehitzalti vega'alti velakachti. It's not an answer that's always possible. It's not an answer we can always stick to. Sometimes there isn't that bright light at the end of the tunnel. But in the case of Parshat Vaera, God speaks to Moshe and he says, I'm not going to answer Lama Hareota. I will go straight forward with taking Bnei Israel out of Egypt. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should each be blessed with that opportunity and gift to look at the difficulties in our lives, to look at the challenges, and to say, Vehotzeti vehitzalti vegalti velakachti. I do not know the answer for Lama Hareota, but I will proceed to the exodus from Egypt. Shabbat Shalom.